So it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for this evening. Our speaker is Dr. Namita Roy. She is an emerging interdisciplinary scholar in the field of consumer research. She has a background in urban studies with a bachelor's and master's degrees in urban planning from India. She earned her doctorate degree in marketing from the University of Wollongong, Australia in 2019. Her research studies value consumer experiences, and she is particularly interested in studying social material servicescapes, contributing to the understanding of marketing of experiences. She uses more than human perspectives and qualitative methodologies, including netnography and ethnography. Prior to pursuing an academic career, Dr. Namita worked as a market researcher studying the tourism industry. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to give the time now to Dr. Namita Roy. Her topic is Netnography for consumer research. As you listen, we encourage you to prepare your questions for the question and answer portion after her presentation. Okay, Dr. Roy, it's now your time. I will stop sharing so you can share your PowerPoint.
All right. I hope everybody is able to see the PowerPoint. Thank you very much, AQRA and IS, and obviously Arceli, David, Dolph, Boyle, all of you. I'm meeting you guys for the first time, but it's a pleasure, and I really, really look forward to more interaction with all of you in the future. So just to and I think thank you, Arceli, for giving such a wonderful introduction for me and introducing me to everyone. I am an emerging researcher, and ethnography is an area that I'm really, really interested in. One of my conference publications was about ethics in ethnography, which I would be talking a bit about as well. And I am currently working on a paper on the same topic. And when Rob asked me to connect with you and get in touch, I was really excited because this has been the first time when I can talk about ethnography to my heart's content. I would be just going through the presentation structure that I'll be doing today. So I would be talking about the networked worlds, a bit of a background about why we need ethnography, what is ethnography, and how to do ethnography. So I kind of understand that it's an emerging sort of technique that is applied in qualitative research. And there's a lot to learn, and Robert Kozinets is the one who invented this technique, and he's a colleague of mine as well. And he basically structured it in a way that that defines how we conduct ethnography today. So I would be going into the details of it, but I do understand that there are lots of people, lots of researchers here who are interested in finding out the methods of ethnography and how to do ethnography. So I would be focusing a bit of the presentation on that as well. Then, of course, I would be talking about ethics of conducting ethnography. And towards the end, I would be talking about the advantages of this methodology and some of the criticisms that are there. So overall, I hope you enjoy this presentation as much as I am enjoying giving it right now. Okay, before I move on, There's a small poll that I think would be interesting to conduct, and I hope David is going to help me with it. So how many groups and pages is everybody a part of? So just a bit of, just to understand, are you guys on Facebook? Are you all on Facebook? So if you are, then how many groups and pages are you a part of on Facebook? So if you could enter that, enter the answers on that poll, and probably we can see, David can tell us the results.
Yes, yes. Now we're 52% voted, so people are still voting in. So hold on.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
61% now voted. Tell me if you want to stop it.
That's okay. So what is the main answer, David? What do you think is the main answer?
So far it's 3-6. I'll share the result when I end the poll. So I think we have 67% of the attendees voted. So
Okay. And we have 3 to 6 is the main answer, right?
Yes, yes. Let me end the poll now, and I'll share.
Okay. That's a good number. To be very honest.
This is the result.
Okay. To be very honest, great. We can see the results here now. So yeah, 3 to 6 is a good number, but have you counted all the pages you have liked, all the sites that you have been to through Facebook, and have you also counted the groups you are part of with respect to your interests and hobbies? If you count all of that, I'm sure the answer is going to be really a lot. And Rosalie, Divina, thank you for your answer. It says more than 10 on the chat. Because I am actually a part of 62 groups. I just realized it. I just realized it when I was looking through my Facebook profile. And it's important to understand that we are today in a networked world. A single person on Facebook can actually join up to 6,000 groups. It just goes on to show that we are not alone, even in this pandemic. If we feel that we are all by ourselves, that's not true. We are constantly connected. We are connected to people through our interests. We are connected to people professionally. We are connected to people socially. We are connected to people through family. And all these connections, most of these connections you will find are online. Sometimes we are also connected to the celebrities we like. We are also connected to, you can go online and connect with anybody that you want to connect with. What does this mean? What does this mean for research is something that we're going to explore. The other thing that I wanted to highlight was the role of social media. So if you see here, Facebook is actually the most used social network as of July 2020, which also means that we are constantly connected through social media. There are a number of different social networks nowadays, and we are connecting through these social networks in different countries. So it's not only with respect to Facebook, but also there is QQ, there's Sina Weibo, there's QSO, there's Snapchat. All of these different apps that have been developed are constantly connecting us in different ways. People are constantly talking about their own life, their own likes, dislikes, as well as how they think about or how they view the world. Now, how do we understand notions of culture and community in this networked world? A lot of the research that talks about culture and community is all specifically through qualitative research methods such as ethnography. focuses on communities that are physically, you know, physically readable, physically studying, you can study them physically. However, when people go online, they change. You want to put something across to a lot of people. Sometimes you will make 10 edits before you actually put on a status update. Sometimes you will follow other people. You will look at what your friends are doing and just admire. Sometimes you will like, sometimes you will comment. Your behavior changes with technology. How do we understand what this techno culture is? What is this culture that we are heading towards? What are communities doing with technology? One of the methods, before we go into how ethnography helps us do this, there's another poll that I would like David to help me with. And this time it is about what you are doing online.
Okay, let me launch the poll.
So here are a few questions. Have you checked your friend's account to see what they're up to? Have you read through the comments and conversations on the threads? And have you participated in discussions online? Which means, have you written a bigger status update and then you've had discussions with people? Have you trolled people? Have you written back on forums? Have you kind of thought about what are the ways you're going to, have you sent friend requests to people? Have you done all of that? So maybe we can give a minute and then David can tell us the results.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's no more increase in the voting. We have 60% voted already.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good. We can look at that.
That's good. Okay, here's the result of the poll.
Okay, so 83% of you said that you have checked your friend's account to see what they're doing. A lot of you do participate in discussions, and more than 90% have read through comments and conversations on threads. So you know what? You have already indulged in a bit of netnography. This is nothing but how we conduct netnography. And I'll get into the details. Thank you, David. We can close the poll now. So to define netnography, I'm going to use Rob Cosenet's definition, which simply says that netnography is about studying online interaction and traces as a cultural phenomena to produce consumer insights. It is a form of qualitative research that seeks to understand the cultural experiences that encompass and are reflected within the traces, practices, networks, and systems of social media that involve investigation, interaction, and immersion. Now, there are many different ways we can understand this definition, but one of the key ways that I kind of find it easy to understand is that we are trying to study people and their behavior online. So we kind of do ethnography, however, we do it online. There are four distinguishing elements of conducting this sort of ethnographic research. The first element is the cultural focus. Like I said, the evolving culture because of technology is something that needs to be studied. Ethnography allows us to delve deeper into this technology and human connection. Then ethnography uses social media data. When you are looking at communities online and their behavior online, the social media data is something that helps us understand how people are connecting with each other. The third distinguishing element of ethnography is that it requires appropriate immersive engagement. Now, there are different ways people engage on social media. However, when you conduct netnography, you need to immerse yourself into the fields that we call the internet. Also, ethnography presents specific and particular procedures and practices that we use so that we maintain academic rigor. Hence, simply going online and looking at what is happening, reading through comments, is a bit of ethnography. However, it is not the entire thing. There is a specific way of conducting ethnographic research, which we will talk about today. And that is what also distinguishes it from general secondary research that we can talk about. Now, why do we need to conduct ethnography? So I got this Statista report some time back where it says Philippines is actually a country where the average time spent on social networking is the highest. So Filipinos actually spend 4 hours in the day only using social media sites, which suggests, and then you can see a range of different Asian countries as well, such as Nigeria, India, China. Most of these countries are engaging in social media usage for a large part of their day. So why do we need ethnography? Well, Asia is more than half the world's population, and we need to understand how this more than half of the world's population is actually behaving online. Why are we looking, what is important? What is the important cultural phenomena that is guiding this sort of immersion? Also, the other reason why we need to look at ethnography as a research method is the double-bodied identities that we have online and offline. You will find that Butelar actually says it very rightly when he says that people are their digital doubles online. You behave like a different persona. You create your own persona. And sometimes you may be detached from that persona online. Sometimes you might be really attached. So there was a study by on Second Life, which was a very popular study that was conducted where a researcher actually entered the Second Life domain, which is like a game site where you go and behave like somebody else, and it's a complete online gaming thing, and they behaved like a different person. They positioned themselves in that particular gaming world. So that's what we mean by consocial identities or online sociality, where we need to understand how our sociality is changing with technology. Again, technoculture, the immense networks that we are a part of today also guides our behavior. We are part of brand communities. We follow celebrities. We follow different hashtags. We follow different pins. We look at different ideas of how people are doing things. Nowadays, there's a lot of creative sort of videos coming up which you keep looking at, and then you have certain videos which you can't stop looking at. It's all going. Things like those videos where you're simply looking at the videos because it gives you that rhythm. All this technology is creating a culture in itself. It is shaping how consumers behave online and offline. And this cultural context is constantly evolving. Therefore, we need to look at ethnography to understand how humans and machines are interacting with each other, and how humans are interacting using machines. But in this case, machines meaning the internet. Now, there are certain similarities and differences of ethnography with ethnography and big data. There's a lot of discussion online and in academic papers that you will find that which suggests its relationship with digital ethnography and similarity to ethnography. So netnography is very, very similar to ethnography, where you are required to completely immerse yourself in a data site, on a data site. However, it is very different from big data. Big data involves collating quantitative data of online traces. However, ethnography involves studying these online traces in detail, studying the online interactions in context of each other. Digital ethnography is also quite differently understood in a lot of sociological studies than ethnography. Digital ethnography is about using the digital platform to conduct ethnography. However, ethnography incorporates all the different techno-cultural, consocial identities that are formed because of technology. So now that we are clear, let's move on to how to do ethnography. So, like any other research, we have basic steps where we finalize the research questions, data science, and then we collect data, analyze it, interpret it, and present it. Now, there are different ways we do this, and what Kozinets calls the 6 procedural movements of ethnography. When the first being initiation, where you focus on what your research question should be and how to initiate the process of ethnography. The second stage called data collection operations, which is conducted in 3 different ways online, through investigation, interaction, and immersion. Collecting all this data, you conduct analysis and interpretation, which Kozinets terms as integration. And finally, the presentation of research, he suggests, is incarnation. So I will be, talking you through all of these steps, each of these steps, to understand how we can conduct ethnography. The first step is about selecting the right research question. Now, with online research, what is important is that we need to understand a phenomena in its online context. So your research questions can be about exploring a new online phenomena or an event or an experience. So for instance, I just met a few researchers some time back who are actually conducting research on TikTok. TikTok is a new sort of short video platform, which is started by a Chinese company. And people love being on TikTok. So they're conducting research on what are the things that people value in TikTok. Why do people enjoy posting pictures of food? That would be another question that would explore the role of food pornography or food involvement in the life of people. And Robert Kozinets has actually conducted this research where he's looked at behaviors of people who take pictures of food. Then you would also conduct an ethnography for questions which help you understand consumer practices around particular products, experiences, or ideas. So for instance, how do women understand beauty? So to understand the idea of beauty, what are people talking about beauty? What are people talking about in brand communities? What are people talking about, say, in L'Oreal communities or other marketing areas where different products around beauty are marketed? There's a lot of user-generated content online. So it is very, very important to kind of see the communication between the brand and the consumer, which helps understand why and what do people think about beauty. Then you could also look at ethnography to understand the growth and fading of brands. A very important study that was conducted by Mary Agnes Parmentier and Eileen Fisher in Journal of Consumer Research, which talked about America's Next model. becoming a popular brand, and then vanishing away. So what they did was they conducted an ethnography, they interviewed people, and they also found a group of fashionistas and fashion oriented consumers to understand what they liked about this particular reality show and how it became popular, and then why did it vanish. You can also do ethnography to specify relationships and social structures. Now, because we are talking about a networked world, we are talking about relationships that people share with, the pair of jeans, their interests in scuba diving, or any other such sort of different consumer products and experiences. Ethnography allows you to understand the acts, the practices, and the meanings that are attached to each of these experiences. So one of the projects that Rob was involved with Adidas was about what acts and meanings are attached to sports shoes, and also questions like how does trolling impact a brand. So all the relationships and social structures that are involved in such in creation of such brands can be researched through ethnography. Another very important area where you would find a lot of marketing research being focused is in the formation of communities. There's a very good paper by Hope Shao and Albert Muniz from 2009, which talks about brand communities and how people are integrated into the brand community, and how they're initiated into the brand community, and how they perpetuate the practices of the community. So if you were doing this research offline, you would have to find the community, you would have to look for it, there would be a physical space where they would be meeting. However, online, it's the community can be worldwide. Everybody could be part of a single brand community, and they can connect each other and they can talk to each other. So how are people innovating through a community engagement online? What are the practices? What are the initiation practices? What are the ritualistic practices? All of these different type of questions about communities can be understood by conducting ethnography. So the idea of looking at ethnographic research to answer your research question is that you need to first define what are the type of questions that you are looking for. What are the type of questions you are trying to answer? The second part of this initiation phase is selecting the data, selecting the websites. What websites are you going to study? What are you studying is going to, again, define the websites that you want to study. For example, if you're interested in studying Adidas communities, you would be looking at specific pages of Adidas on Facebook or on different channels where they have that page. So for instance, if you're following a celebrity and the celebrity's practices, then you might be interested in looking across different sites such as Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, and what is that celebrity posting. So it really depends, your site selection really depends on what is the context of your study. Are you studying communities or are you studying a particular phenomena? So for instance, I did my research in the area of gastronomic consumer culture, and I was looking at, I conducted ethnography to understand how people are relating with food and wine together. And I conducted ethnography. I selected the sites based on these terms, food and wine. So I looked at blogs, I looked at forums, I looked at different web pages or Facebook pages. I looked at Instagram handles. So I was looking at a particular phenomena, and hence my site search was really wide. However, if you're looking at a particular community, your site scope can be very, very limited and very, very small, which could work when it's not like it's not going to work. It can work, and it really depends on what you are after. Also, another thing to note here is the data that you are dealing with. When you're conducting ethnographic research, very similar to ethnographic research, you are collecting data from a varied source. So you're looking at hashtags, you're looking at handles, you're looking at photos, you're looking at videos, you're looking at comments, you're looking at blogs, you're looking at journal entries, status updates. So the sources of data are really, really large. And also the type of data differs. So for instance, for photos and videos, you could look at Instagram and YouTube, and you can download that data to understand how it connects with the other sort of data that is available on other sites. Now let's come to the data collection methods. Once you've understood what your research question is, what is the initiation process that is involved? Once you've gone through the initiation process of selecting the sites where you would conduct research, and you've gone through the process of finalizing the data type or the data sources, then you try to think about the key data collection methods. Now, there are 3 different methods that are available through ethnography. All these 3 methods can be done together, or you can choose to do one method over the other. The first method involves investigation. You would find a lot of different studies, specifically the studies that involve restricted sites or restricted or sensitive topics, conduct investigative ethnography, where they only use unobtrusive observation and recording. This is also commonly referred to as lurker approach. Here, there are different methods that you apply. So you simplify, scout, select, and then save data from different blogs, forums, threads, profiles, tweets. So your data sources are still the same. However, you are unobtrusively observing them. Then you have the interactive method, where you engage with these different websites and the users of different websites. So you can engage with them over time or across sites. This data is usually co-produced and elicited because you are trying to ask questions on forums, by commenting, liking, and other types of involvement, and it hence is more interactive. The third type is the immersive data collection method. Immersive data collection method can be either of the two or both. However, the main thing about immersive data collection is that you are constantly involved with the data sources. You are checking your data sources daily. You are talking to your research participants daily. You are recording data daily. You're researching, and you're also reflecting on what you have learned. So you are constantly thinking about theory, the connection between theory and what you are observing in your data. This method also combines with other methods which may involve secondary data collection or even primary interviews on site. Now, I just wanted to run you through certain examples. Examples of investigative studies include gang studies. So I'm not sure how many of you are social researchers, but Urbanek et al. They came out with a very recent study where they looked at operations of different gangs. And investigative ethnography actually helps them access these restricted spaces by unobtrusively observing what is happening. Then investigative studies are also good for sensitive topics. A very commonly referred to study is by Langer and Beckman from 2005, which talks about cosmetic surgery. Nowadays, it's more common to talk about cosmetic surgery, but in those days, not a lot of people talked about it. Then investigative studies are also good for exploratory appraisals, where you're trying to simply explore a phenomena from a very third person's view, from a very wide angled view. One of the studies that comes to mind for that is the Chinese recreation vehicle users study by Wu and Pierce. The interactive and immersive studies go hand in hand. So a lot of immersion is involved in interactive studies as well. So like I mentioned, the study about the brand communities, which was conducted on the Apple Newton community, is a very good example. Then you could also study networked communities. For instance, Weijo et al., they actually came out with the idea of delocalization, where one person is involved in several communities at the same time. And there's a lot of movement that happens within those communities. So how do networks operate when such a thing happens? Then again, the Parmentier and Fisher study that I mentioned, interactive and immersive studies example, a very good example of that is the longitudinal phenomena that was captured by their study of America's Next Top Model, how the brand came to a popular start and then finished. The next step for conducting ethnographic research is analyzing the data. Now, data analysis at this stage for ethnography is very similar to other qualitative research methods, where we use inductive, deductive, or abductive approaches. Here, what we need to do is understand how we can apply the theoretical lens onto the data. Now, there are a lot of people who do use qualitative data softwares such as NVivo and Leximancer to conduct this sort of data analysis. But I would just go through the common steps that are involved for netnography. So when you're talking about data analysis of netnographic data, collating is the most important step, because you have varied data with you, where you have different types of photos, different types of tweets, different types of comments. You need to collate this data in order to analyze this data. Sometimes I found that NVivo software was really, really helpful for organizing all the data, all the ethnographic data in different files. Then you start with coding. Think about what your theoretical lens is. Try to find the concepts that you are dealing with in your data. And you use simple codes to assign labels. Combining comes the next step, where you are preparing higher order codes. So you're combining different codes into themes, what we call themes. Then counting is also about counting the number of data sources that you have used to ascertain a particular theme. Also, it describes the structural elements. For instance, if you're looking at photos or videos, then you are counting how many photos or what are the elements that are common in those photos which you would talk about. And then comes the part of charting, where you are presenting data by charting out through a conceptual map. So you create a conceptual map to understand what your different data sources are telling you. Now, Kozinets also talks about data interpretation. He says interpretation is different from analysis. The reason being that once you've analyzed the data based on the theoretical lens you were using, interpretation allows you to step back from it and see what is happening with context to the theory that you have used. So the first step of interpretation involves theming, where you're looking at the patterns that are coming across. What are the connections between the different themes that you have looked at from your data? You can also use talenting. Talenting is about artistically, organizing your data. So a lot of researchers do engage with poetry to, map out what the scenario is or what is happening. totalizing. This is a very interesting concept that he talks about, where you look at particular data that summarizes the entire scene for you. And for me, because I was conducting research on gastronomic consumer culture, on food and wine trails, this particular quote that I've written there kind of summarized my research. There were people who said, we feel like we are in an upmarket place, a posh marketplace, or a posh atmosphere. That kind of, summarized what the feeling of being in a gastronomic marketplace was, and how people were talking about it online, how they were more effectively discussing the culture rather than the practices of different tourism aspects. The next point is translating, bringing the data together, bringing data and theory together. Turtling, bringing out underlying philosophies. Turtling is basically digging a bit deeper, riding on the, it goes on the metaphor of a turtle, where you say that, there's one turtle over the other, over the other, over the other, and you need to take them off to kind of dig deeper into what the underlying, philosophy is behind it. And then troublemaking. How is it changing what we already know? Now, I know that we are running short on time, so I'm just going to wrap up very quickly. The last part is about data presentation. Now, data presentation really depends on the outlet you are targeting. So if you are looking at journals which are more quantitative in nature, you can actually quantify the ethnographic data, which I actually did. I counted the number of pages that my ethnographic data totaled and posited that. And then you can also quantify the number of months that you've put in while looking at the data. Ethical presentation, you can use anonymity, cloaking, pseudonyms, fabrication, and decontextualization, which is a very common method of ethically presenting data. Now, ethics in ethnography. David, are we good on time? I think we just have 10 minutes left, so I'm just going to quickly go through it. Is that okay? Okay, thanks. So when we talk about ethics in ethnographic research, Kozinets discusses application of consequentialist ethics. What we need to think about is, who is it going to hurt? Nowadays, everybody is easily searchable online. You can actually, find whose quote this was and whose Facebook profile it was. So it's very easy to find out, especially with ethnographic data. So you need to first ascertain whether this participant is happy for their data to be shared. So there are lots of criticisms and discussions about who is it going to hurt, the maintenance of, whether this is public data or whether this is private data that we are talking about. Are we talking about data, or are they actually real people, specifically when you're considering archival data? Then is there a need for differentiated ethical approaches? Because sometimes when you are looking at communities which have more than 100 people, who do you seek consent from, and how do you get access to those communities? So those are very common ethical questions which are still being figured out. Then again, another important question about ethics is on disclosure. Because we are all part of Facebook, so if we are researching different groups, do we disclose who we are? Now let's come to the last part, which is advantages and criticisms. Main advantages of conducting ethnography is that you have a lot of data sources. You have multiplicity of data and sources from where you can draw on about behaviors. Timeliness of gathering data. If you're looking at archival data, you can sit and scrape data very easily in a day. Or alternatively, you can follow different communities by being part of those communities at different times longitudinally. So it is very easy to go online be a part of the community, and gather that data. Extension of field sites. You are not limited to a particular site geographically. You can actually access different areas of the world when you're looking at research data. The data is rich. People not just express through text, they express through photos, they express through videos, they express through tweets, they express through comments and emojis also. So all these expressions are really, really valuable for a consumer researcher. Ways to study consumption online and techno-consumption. As I said previously, the main advantage of ethnography is that you get to understand this cyber culture or techno culture, which is evolving with humans. It allows for unobtrusive study of sensitive data. It is very, very flexible. All the 3 steps of data collection can be done together, can be done individually, can be done one after the other, and can be done in an iteration. So let's go to the criticisms, and then I will end. As I said, ethics regarding ethnography is still an area which is under research. There are different things that still need to be navigated through. There are many different ethnographers who have already done it, and we need to learn from them. There is a lack of guidelines that are available, specifically with respect to procedural ethics. I don't know how it works in Philippines, but in Australia, you have to apply for human research ethics approvals. So that means you have to create ethics applications which involve adhering to specific guidelines. But because there are no guidelines to conduct ethnographic research, it becomes really difficult to, make your application based on existing procedural guidelines. A lot of researchers have raised concerns with rigor. However, that hurdle has been passed now because a lot of researchers are using ethnography with rigor, and the rigor in any kind of qualitative research is shown through the immersiveness and the richness of data that is available. And it is difficult, yes, that's the last one. It is difficult to conduct immersive ethnography if you're a shy researcher. So if you're someone who's not very, extrovert, or who is happy to talk to people, or who doesn't shy away from sending a message or a comment and participating, then this method might be a bit difficult for you. However, that said, I'm going to take that back actually, because there are, as I showed you, there are many different ways how you can overcome that as well. So nothing stops you. So thank you very much, and I'm really sorry to extend this for so long. I'm really, really sorry. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did presenting it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Namita. It's really a splendid presentation. Now, Dr. Pavel and Dr. David will facilitate the question and answer. Again, I would like to remind those of you who posted your questions in the chat box, move them to the question and answer.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Namita. It was insightful presentation, and it's a new field for research, and it's really a learning experience. We have questions, and we'll start with our own questions as panelists. I'd like to ask you two little questions, actually. Just curious, how do you recruit your participants, and if you want to conduct an online interview? What is the procedure in this case?
Thank you, Pavel, for organizing this question answer round. And as an answer to the first question, when you are entering a particular data site with the objective of recruitment of participants, you need to, as with ethnography, you need to gain their trust. You need to understand what their community is about and learn the language of that community. Once they trust you, and then they'll be really happy to, divulge more. And I think what I faced when I was conducting this research and how I recruited my participants was that I was completely honest and I had full disclosure. So I told them why I was there, what I was doing, what I needed, and I participated in discussions very easily. And then it was easier for me to connect with a few of them on an instant chat, send them my information and consent sheet on the chat, and then simply ask them, hey, do you have some time for an online interview?
Yeah, thank you so much. One of the basic assumptions of qualitative research is studying people in their natural context, natural setting. I doubt that, well, maybe the new generation, for the new generation, the online community is a natural setting, but for probably the other side it's not really natural. I mean, considering ethnography and netnography, do you consider this difference of natural setting of your participants?
To be very honest, going just by the numbers, if you see, there's only 1.2 billion in the people in the world who are not on Facebook. So my parents are on Facebook. a lot of the people are on Facebook now, and on different different sites. If not, they're still doing YouTube. They're still looking at YouTube videos. So, but yes, I kind of agree with you that if your research group is, or if your context of study is probably somebody who's not so internet savvy, then definitely this will not be the place where you would want to find them.
Thank you so much. I give a chance to other panel members to ask questions. Dr. Dolph.
Hello.
Dr. Dodd, do you want to ask a question, or we pass it on? All right.
Okay, maybe Dr. Safari has a question he'd like to ask. Dr. Safari, you're muted.
Welcome, Dr. Safari, to this panel discussion.
Thank you so much, and congratulations, Dr. Roy. That was very, very informative presentation that you had. And greetings to everyone. Greetings to everyone from Kenya. I'm glad to see a lot of familiar faces here. One of the assumptions of ethnography is the description of the culture of the people you're studying. Looking at social media, at least if you look at what is happening in the US right now with the Black Lives Matter, I think that it would be wrong to just stop at the description. And so I wanted to know, what is your take? Is netnography also stopping at the description of the culture? Or does it take one step further to promote advocacy, certain advocacy, to deal with the social inequalities or oppression that is happening in the community? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Safari. That's a very interesting point that you raised. Well, ethnography is a qualitative research methodology to understand a phenomena. I'm not very sure how you would apply it for advocacy. You can use it. You can use the findings. You can use the research that you do to advocate, promising or positive sort of ideas in the world. But as a method itself, I'm not sure. I'm not very sure how you could, simply use the method to advocate certain positive ideas. I'm not sure if I answered your question, Dr. Safari.
I just wanted to know if it is part of the nature of ethnography, because in ethnography, I don't see much of it happening beyond the description, because we are not supposed to even disturb the culture of the people. But is that the assumption of ethnography? Because if it is, then I would say it's a weakness of ethnography.
Yes, I think with ethnography, ethnography would help you understand a cultural phenomena. It's not going to create advocacy areas. Using the results, the things that you find, somebody can actually go and advocate. For instance, if you're talking about Black Lives Matter, ethnographic research can find what other communities facing and take those results to advocate positive ideas for different organizations. So that's the benefit, but that is similar to ethnography.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Pavel and David, we are now past 3 minutes, 6 o'clock, but there are very important questions here. In fact, we have like 20 questions in the Q&A box. Perhaps we can take like 2 or 3 questions, and yes, the rest we can, Dr. Namita, usually what we do is we, from the Zoom report, we summarize the questions and then we post on the AQRA Facebook page if there are concerns that really are very relevant and must be answered. We will just communicate with you just to assure our participants that questions that are not answered will be addressed. We'll try our best to address them. Okay, yes, please go ahead, David.
How many minutes do we have, Paul? Are you allowing this?
We can, Dr. Roy, is it okay if we extend like 10 minutes more on your end?
Yes, that's fine.
And for our participants, if you want to stay a little longer, you are welcome. Yes, go ahead, David.
Okay, so there's a question by Mr. Ranjit Gladstone. How is netnography different from virtual ethnography?
That's a very good question, Ranjit. Thanks for that question. Virtual ethnography or digital ethnography is a term that is coined by a lot of sociologists, and what they essentially talk about, as per my knowledge, what they talk about is how do we study existing communities digitally? How do we study the digital behavior of existing communities or normal communities? However, what ethnography allows you to do is also understand how technology is shaping that behavior. What we are interested in understanding through ethnography is that what are the ways technology is interacting with human behavior and shaping it in a way. And that is what makes it a bit different with respect to its conceptual understanding, but I'm sure the methods are going to be pretty much similar. However, the conceptual understanding of where ethnography is situated with respect to technogenesis is what Robert Kozinets terms it as, where technology and humans are evolving together and how they interact together with each other is something that ethnography allows you to do. I hope I've answered your question.
David, you're muted.
So here's another one from Mr. Medriano. One of the principles of ethnography is the full disclosure of the researcher's presence in the online community, therefore informing member of the ongoing research. With this in mind, will this affect the collection of authentic data? Some members will use a different persona once research is known to control data. Basically, when they know you're there, they might change.
Yeah. Well, this is very much consistent with ethnographic research as well, where if your researcher's presence can lead to change in behavior of your study, research community. However, with ethnography, what I have experienced, in my research is that if the topic is not very sensitive, if you're not talking about really sensitive topics, like, I don't know, the gang studies one or anything like that, people would be still the same. And influence of other people online is also going to shape their behavior. So it's not just you based on which, other people would react, but it is based on how, other people of the community would perceive of them as well. So there are many balancing forces that are at play in such communities.
Right. Here's another one from Rajani Shetiri. I'm sorry if I pronounced the name wrong, but can the study of online phenomenon be reflective on the ground or real trends or otherwise? How do we approach the epistemology of online world to the offline world? What do you suggest?
Well, this is a very good question, Rajni. Thanks for your question. But I would think that conceptually, any online phenomena is very reflective of whatever we are facing in reality, because our behavior is going to be shaped by other people, communities, networks that we are part of. And the way we interact online is a manifestation of real life anyway. So yes, it could be shaped by technology per se, and the presence of and the fact that you could just say and do anything that you like. Specifically, if you look at the example of trolling, how people are overly excited to talk about and say whatever they want under the guise of the internet. It's actually, it can be said that whatever behavior you're seeing offline might be actually exaggerated online. I mean, some of the studies can actually prove that too. So it really is not about whether it's reflective of on-ground trends, but it's more about how are these trends shaped by technology online, and how are these behaviors reflected online.
Thank you.
We can have one more,
One
David.
more?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe this one from Mr. Balanga. What specific fields may in ethnography not work well or be inappropriate? May we know some limitations of the design? I know you talk about some limitations, but maybe what fields will they not work well?
Yes, thank you, Gerald, for this excellent question. Well, specific fields such as manufacturing, if you're talking about engineering, manufacturing, where you require really hands-on practices, if you're studying in any of those areas, then that might not, then ethnography might not be suitable for you. But that's just an example that's off my head. But what we can say is that now I'm thinking that might not be true also, because a lot of people who are working in industrial settings are also putting up photos online and putting up videos of their working online. So it's kind of I don't see any sort of field limitation to ethnography per se. In terms of design, well, like with all qualitative data, you cannot quantify or generalize the findings that you have. So that's kind of very reflective of qualitative research design, I guess.
Thank you. Marceli?
Yes, so